And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, September 30th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that Super Chat button in the chat. This will help create a Super Chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge that thought or comment, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. It was a wild weekend, of course, both in the NFL and in college. We're actually going to talk about college football today because there was one game that I want to highlight, and that is the Alabama-Georgia game, because I did watch that. Unbelievable game, so we'll get into that. But we'll start off the show. We'll talk about the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Bills and the Ravens. Ravens were all over the Bills in this game, winning 35-10, so we'll get into the specifics of that in a second. Then, in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Chiefs. We'll talk about their 17-10 victory over the Chargers, but big injury in that game. Rashee Rice, he likely tore his ACL and is out for the season, if that's the case. And Chiefs are not encouraged by, he's going to be getting an MRI, and that's basically going to tell them that probably tore his ACL. And the Chiefs are down yet another weapon. So we'll get into that and the impact of it going forward. We'll also get into talking about, like I said, the Georgia-Alabama game. We'll talk about some of the other big college football matchups as well from this past weekend, but we're going to highlight the Alabama-Georgia game because that game was unbelievable. And then in the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about the Vikings improving to 4-0 on the season, defeating the Packers 31-29. But we'll talk about the roller coaster of a game that was. And then in the final part of the show, we'll preview both Monday night matchups tonight, the Titans and the Dolphins, and the Seahawks and the Lions. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Ravens and the Bills. So Bills are coming in at 3-0, coming off of that dominating performance against the Jaguars, who are now 0-4 on the season. And the Ravens, they were coming off of a win against the Cowboys, a game that got a little dicey at the end, but they were able to hold them off and win. And going into this game, a lot of people were riding the Bills. And for me, I actually did take the Ravens in this game. At home, I was like, maybe they don't drop their first two home games. And right from the start, the Ravens just dominated this game. And the Bills, they got the ball to start. 7 plays, 20 yards. Didn't do anything with the football. And the Ravens, their drive only lasted one play. I was looking at my phone, was not looking at the TV. All of a sudden, I look up, and there goes Derrick Henry. 87 yards for a touchdown, and he continues his dominance against the Bills. He had that 3-touchdown game a few years ago. He really does well against the Bills. And these are his stats from the game. Almost 200 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, which was the one I just brought up, on 24 carries. And this is why the Ravens brought in Derrick Henry. He is a difference maker. Now, he's 30 years old, so obviously that is old for a running back, but this is the right spot for him. And he showed last night that, like I said, he could be a difference maker for this team. So, yeah, first play of their first drive only lasted one play. It's 87 yards, Derrick Henry to the house. So then the Bills, they did respond. 11 plays, 38 yards, got into Tyler Bass's field goal range, 50-yard field goal. And actually, he did miss one last night. So that made it 7-3. But then the Ravens answered. Another touchdown drive, 9 plays, 70 yards down the field. And Lamar Jackson connected with Derrick Henry for another touchdown. So he had a receiving touchdown in this game as well. These are just his rushing stats. But yeah, so 2 touchdowns for Derrick Henry last night. 1 receiving, 1 rushing. So that made it 14-3. Then the Bills punted on their last drive, or their next drive, and the Ravens responded with yet another touchdown. And Lamar Jackson connected with Justice Hill for a 19-yard touchdown. So the running backs, not only are they running the football well, but they're also catching it well. So that made it 21-3. Bills punted, Ravens fumbled, and you thought, okay, here we go. This is when, the Ravens are going to blow this lead, but that was not the case. The Bills punted, and that was the end of the first half. Ravens opened up their first drive of the second half with a punt, and the Bills scored a touchdown off of that. Josh Allen, great play on 3rd and 5, connecting with Khalil Shakir for 52 yards, and then Ty Johnson from 3 yards out scored a touchdown. So then you kind of thought, maybe, is this where the tides are going to turn here? Because, again, the Ravens are a team that's susceptible to blowing leads. Ravens then punted on their next drive. Bills fumbled. That was a Curtis. Oh, no, Josh Allen. It was a direct snap to Curtis Samuel. Oh, that's right, because they tried to do like a trick play. Josh Allen had the ball, and he ended up losing it. Two guys got hurt on the play, actually. Josh Allen took a vicious hit. I think Kincaid also took a vicious hit as well. It was an unnecessary roughness penalty on Marlon Humphrey. But Josh Allen did stay in the game. Eventually, Mitchell Trubisky took over because, at that point, the game was already out of reach. But Mitchell Trubisky did come in. So, yeah, the Ravens then took over on that fumble, and they scored another touchdown. Lamar Jackson, a 9-yard rushing touchdown. So that put them up 28-10. And then Tyler Bass missed a field goal. This was a 48-yarder. And then the Ravens scored yet another touchdown. And Derrick Henry was going to score his 3rd touchdown of the game. He ends up fumbling, and it was recovered by Patrick Card in the end zone. So that made it 35-10, and then that's basically how the game went. Josh Allen, 16-29, 180 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked 3 times. Bills only ran the ball for 81 yards. Ty Johnson had the rushing touchdown. James Cook, a quiet day, 9 carries for 39 yards. Khalil Shakir was their leading receiver, 4 receptions for 62 yards. Keon Coleman, 3 for 51. Josh Allen, like I said, had a fumble in this game. Bills defense, only 1 sack. Tyler Bass was 1 for 2 on field goals. Then for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, 13 of 18, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Ravens, as a team, ran the ball for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's their identity. That's their identity, is running the football. 24 carries with Derrick Henry. Like I said, almost 200 yards rushing. 2 total touchdowns in the game. Lamar Jackson had 6 for 54 and a touchdown. Justice Hill, 4 for 18. He ended up being their leading receiver. 6 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Likely had 1 for 26. Derrick Henry, like I said, fumbled, but Patrick Card recovered it for a touchdown. Lamar Jackson fumbled in this game and lost that. And Kyle Hamilton had the fumble recovery later in the game. Ravens defense, 3 sacks, like I said. And Justin Tucker, 5 for 5 on extra points last night. So the Ravens, they improved to 2-2 on the season. Bills dropped to 3-1. And yeah, this was a big win for the Ravens. And I know a lot of people, they were all over the Bills, taking them in this game. But for me, I was like, you know what? Let me go against the grain here. Ravens are at home, and they are a good team. I know like I said, they have problems with holding leads. They were able to hold off the Cowboys last week, but the Bills got to lose at some point, right? And they did, but in a big way. So this was definitely a very encouraging win for the Ravens going forward. And with the Steelers losing yesterday, now they're 1 game back of the division lead. So they looked really good last night on both sides of the ball, running and playing good defense. And they shut down an offense that was coming in hot. And it's going to happen. The Bills are not going to always do that to teams. And the Bills are not going undefeated. No team is going undefeated this year. Not even the Vikings. They almost blew their lead yesterday, and we'll get into that later in the show. But, yeah, every team is going to lose at some point. And we'll talk about the Chiefs, another team that's undefeated. They're going to lose at some point. It's only a matter of time. Every team is beatable. And once again, this week showed that the NFL is unpredictable with some of the games. And we'll get to a lot of them tomorrow and throughout the week. So, but I was impressed by the Ravens, what they were able to do. This is what the Ravens are capable of. And this is why this could be a team that makes it to the Super Bowl. And when you have a running back like Derrick Henry, who could do this, now he's not going to do it every week. These last 2 games, though, he's been really good. If he can continue to do this throughout the season, Lamar Jackson, both passing and running the football, you got that. You play good defense. this is a very good team. And this team, don't be surprised if you see them in my top 5 when I do my power rankings later this week. Because it's ever changing, the top 5. And it definitely changed after this week, let me tell you. So, Ravens get a big win here. For the Bills, I mean, not really concerned about them, but I know there's complaints about the play calling, and the defense just was really bad yesterday. But this is still a good football team, and it's just one of those games that it happens. But, this was a true test for them because they went up against the Cardinals. And the Cardinals haven't looked great the last couple weeks offensively, and that we'll get to that game this week. They played against the Dolphins, who they always beat, and then they played against the Jaguars, who were 0-4. Now you go up against the Ravens in Baltimore, and Ravens outclassed them in every way. So, but I'm not worried about the Bills going forward. Although, yeah, there's some issues that they got to clean up. But it happens. So, next week, who do they play next week? Because I know the following week they play the Jets, which is a big game. And the Jets are fortunate the Bills lost. We'll get to that game too. Don't worry. This week. So they take on the Texans. That's a big game. That's a big game. Stephon Diggs' revenge game. So that's one of the best games of the weekend. And then they take on the Jets the following week. So we'll see what happens. But Ravens, big win. Let me know what you guys think about this game. Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Chiefs and their 17-10 victory. We'll also talk about the injury to Rashee Rice and the impact of that. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.